Now, it's just about 5 months until the 2024 general elections, and the campaign trail is gradually heating up. The catcalls have already begun, and I'm hosting a woman who speaks for John Mahama, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, who is staging a comeback. Now, her words are as good as his own. Her name is Joyce Bawa Mogtari. And really, the burning question on the minds of many is whether John Mahama will give the public a presidential debate after a fierce invitation by Dr. Bawah. Malik Basintele told us last week that Mahama will always be ready. Hello, Ms. Mogtari. Welcome to GHOne TV.
Thank you. Good evening. My very first time sitting with you.
It is.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Good evening to everybody else.
Well.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. By God's grace, yes.
Now, many have been asking the question, is John Mahama going to debate Dr. Bawah? Is that going to happen?
Oh, my goodness. I wasn't expecting this one as the first one. Look, you know, I think that I would just say that every Ghanaian knows that the challenge for John Mahama is not about debates. That's really not the conversation. Secondly, debates are just a convention. They are not regulated. They are not part of the law.
Well,
not even part of
the
absolutely.
To know the
and there are so many people who actually host debates, and there are just as many platforms where we can share our policies and have these conversations. But the final decision on whether or not the National Democratic Congress will be participating in a debate or the other does not lie in my mouth. I'm sure it's a decision that the flag bearer will make, the running mate will make, and of course the party will decide as well. But what I actually don't like, and I think I expressed my reservations, is the fact that you issue a release of that kind when you have not even hitherto had any consultations with us or written to us formally or even informed us. And then it was a timing too, because it was immediately after the candidate on the other side had actually thrown a bait. My sister, in 2016, then candidate Akufo-Addo declined an invitation by everybody to debate. Nothing happened. In 2020, he declined a similar debate. Indeed, at the time, his then partner and running mate was the one literally disrespecting everybody and telling us who to go and debate. What has changed over 4 years? I'm sure that debates are still not the determining factor for whether you win an election or not. And debates don't indicate whether your policies would be probably better preferred. They didn't debate in 2016. They didn't debate in 2020. So what has changed? You know, seriously, I don't want to spend too much time on this conversation, especially regarding the IEA or what they say or not. I've actually had a conversation with the IEA. And when we lift the veil of incorporation, we know who is behind the IEA. But
is that your problem? Is that your problem? You say lifting the veil of incorporation shows, and this is...
There is that, and then there's also the perception. I see no reason why that release would come on the back
of the call made by the MPP flag bearer.
And then to think that the release did not even refer or even criticize, even passing, you know, just passively, the fact that they had declined in 2016 and declined in 2020. So please, I think that nothing happened. It didn't change anything.
Is your problem the person who's behind the IEA?
You know, as I said, there are many platforms. There's the GBC one, there's the IEA, there's Imani. I don't want to make it a personal thing. All I'm saying is that before you invite anybody, at least have a certain conversation, consult them, or even send them a letter privately. Don't issue a release and assume that everybody's going to follow you, because at the end of the day, this is just merely a convention.
Now, Ms. Mogtari, you say it's merely a convention, but at the same time, it's a platform that allows the electorate to know what's in the minds and better details the policies of the flag bearers of these parties. Do you not owe it somewhat to the electorate to grant this?
It is not the only platform. There are many platforms.
So you're not going to honor the IEA platform?
So I am not actually indicating whether or not it's about the IEA. I'm just saying that one, we didn't like the approach. Secondly, I think that it was wrong. Thirdly, I think it sought to actually give the impression that they were actually aligned with our opponent. And I think I said so very clearly. And they didn't deny any of that in their response to us this morning. So I think that the IEA accepts that there's a certain order, that since it's a convention, there's a certain conversation that should also have taken place, which had not taken place. And I think they admit that fact, which is fine.
You've explicitly said there are other platforms, which sort of suggest that you might prefer to mount other platforms as opposed to the IEA.
We have no preferences. We are ready to debate
Is
any
your
day or
concern the
time.
fact that the person behind the IEA is aligned to the New Patriotic Party?
I don't even want to belabor that point. And I said that earlier.
You did highlight it. You said removing
I said,
the veil,
yes,
we see
and I left
who...
at that. I'm a lawyer. I know exactly
Right.
when I want to stop.
Does it concern you, though?
Not necessarily. We've had IEA debates in the past.
Right. So
Many
what
of
has
them.
changed now? Now, you say you've had IEA debates in the past. In the statement you put out concerning the debates, which the IEA said plans were far advanced, and you took offense to that, because how can plans be far advanced when the major opposition party has not been informed?
Not the major
Rightly
opposition.
so.
Well, at least today they admit
Right.
that they have not consulted either of the political parties. So it's not me saying so. It means what I suspected is a fact, that they are trying to do someone's bidding. It is on them, a burden for them to disprove that assertion.
Now, in this statement, you also said that the IEA has not been constitutionally mandated to hold these debates. You've taken part in the debate subsequently. You've taken advantage of the platform previously. What has changed for you now, whereby you've just realized that this organization now does not have the power?
I have said so many times that this is merely a convention. We are not bound by any obligation of law or statute or regulation, for example. So you decide and choose whether you want to go for a debate or not. It is actually literally just a mere convention of democracy that is just nice for you to do so. But it is wrong for you to assume that we, a certain entitled space, that it is something you've been doing. When the immediate persons who are going to participate in your debate, who are going to be benefiting from your debate, who should actually be taking advantage of the platform that you offer, have one, not been consulted, two, there's been no conversation, three, there's been no correspondence, four, the question is simply, why a release when you haven't prepared the parties whom you're inviting? Look, nobody is going to be doing the bidding of the New Patriotic Party or their candidate for that matter. I've also stated categorically that we are not, as citizens, going to sit and allow people to run roughshod over us, and certainly not to allow the president to foist his running mate or vice president on anybody. I have said many times, demand accountability from the MPP and from their candidate. Demand the 170 questions posed at a time when Ghana wasn't bankrupt. And I'm sure you heard today, our debt stock stands at 742 billion from 120 in 2016. These are the things that matter. Ghanaians are starving. There's enormous hardship. The minister himself admitted that he empathizes with the good people of Ghana. Let's stop nitpicking and speak to the matters that concern citizens. Ghanaians are poised for a change in government, because for 7 years and 8 months, we have seen absolutely nothing. In the scheme of things, when we are broke and bankrupt, when there is so much corruption that we don't even know which ones to pick and which allegations to believe, I think that the citizens of Ghana are interested more in who leads us more than what platform you go to speak on.
So in saying that, and you say that you believe that the citizens of Ghana are more concerned as per who leads us, I'm just going to have us speak on this some more before we move on. This is a platform that will allow the citizens to, as you put it, hear what the NDC and the presidential candidate, the flag bearer, is going to be putting forward, given that he's given the nod. Can't John Mahama just be the bigger person and the sort of tit-for-tat politics? Can't he be the bigger person and grant...
Where were you in 2016? I'm sure you were here in Ghana.
Certainly.
Where were you in 2020? I'm sure you were here in Ghana.
Right.
So please, I think that the buck stops to those who are in office. Responsibility today lies with those who are in government.
What would it take for John Mahama to mount this stage and address the Guinean people?
Nobody will dictate to anybody how, when, or where. That will not happen. And if you didn't demand for strict adherence from the powers that be, I see no reason why anybody wants to put any pressure on anybody. As I said, it lies on them to consult us, to ask us.
You say that you've engaged with them. You just said
that
you had an engagement.
I've spoken with them. Yes, they called after they received my response to their release. And then today they decided to send another response, admitting ordinarily that they haven't done any consultations prior.
And given that they've admitted this, does it in any way soften your stance?
I don't think my stance is a firm stance of any sort. No, we are on terra firma. That their release coming on the back of Dr. Bawumia's call will not dictate to anybody what we do and how we do it. And that the IEA must know. that is merely a convention, merely tradition, just another platform. We are going to Tamale on Saturday.
Yes,
We're going to
you
be
are going
launching
to
our campaign
launch the
2024.
campaign on Saturday, yes.
Certainly, John Mahama will be speaking on a much wider platform to the 34 million citizens of Ghana. We will be broadcast live on many media platforms. We will be on social media, you name it. So I think, and you know that I love social media, and it gets results. People follow your information in real time.
Well, it's different from a debate, but all right.
Well,
yes.
You know, I think we shouldn't put too much premium on the debate because, as I said, in the history of this country, John Mahama has been known to hold his own. He's had debates with President Akufo-Addo, then candidate Akufo-Addo. We know how that one ended. They had a second one. On the third occasion, he declined because finally he had gotten what he wanted. On the fourth occasion, he declined. The person now comically jumping around and tossing all over on platforms and screaming himself rough about wanting a debate literally has nothing to show. No message whatsoever. As I said, ask him to fix the economy. Ask him to tell us that between 120 billion and 740 billion cedis, what have they done in between? Ask them about corruption. You see, the reason why Ghanaians are poorer is because of the stealing, the graft, and all the bad things that are currently taking place. And of course, what was it that won then candidate Akufo-Addo the election? They campaigned on the grounds of corruption. They campaigned on reducing corruption. They campaigned on protecting the public purse. They campaigned on foreign exchange and had a whole committee set up when they won in 2016 to invite people from CSOs, for example, to come and help them to stabilize the foreign exchange. Today, the central bank admits that they made losses of 50 billion Ghana cedis. Who is holding them to account? There are very important conversations. If the IEA had even asked Dr. Bawumia, for example, to tell them specifically what he's doing to fix the economy, because why did candidate Akufo-Addo pick him in the first place? He told us he was at the Bank of Ghana and that he was a whiz kid. He understood the economy. He'd help him manage it. Where are we today on foreign exchange? When they took over, the dollar was 4.1 cedis. How much was fuel? How much was food? You know, look, there are very, very important things that bother the citizens of Ghana.
There are, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Food
You're
is
launching
very
the campaign this Saturday.
Absolutely.
Right? We're not going to expect, we should not expect, the people of Ghana should not expect John Dramani Mahama to debate ahead of this election.
I don't want to put, you know, look, nothing is cast in stone. And as I said, the IEA does not dictate which platform we avail ourselves of. We don't work for the IEA. They don't pay us in our politics. The IEA is just one of the CSOs we have in Ghana. They may be a respected think tank, but that's about it. There are many platforms that we can choose. We can even come here and have a debate if that's what we want to do. If you invite us and we are willing and happy and able, why not? But like I said, don't make it seem as if you are running to the dictates of somebody who knew exactly that in 2020 his boss wasn't going to debate any opposition leader. And even had the effrontery to tell him who to go and debate. The same man who asked us 170 questions. Why are you not asking him to respond to those questions today? Times are much harder. Conditions are a lot worse than what they inherited. Those are the things that matter, and I think that
those are the things you want to address.
That we ought to be addressing.
You've clearly highlighted there are other platforms that you can take advantage of. So that's an open invitation to us, I believe, here at EIB, to host a debate, which you will honor.
Everybody is free to treat. If that's what you want to do, just make the offer.
Very well. We take you on your word for that.
Certainly.
Now, ahead of the campaign being launched this Saturday, what are the plans?
Well, we've got all these adverts out. We have jingles in many languages. In Dagbani, because we're going to Tamale. In Gonja, because Savannah is very close to Tamale. We have one in Frafra, and of course in Ga, in Chi, and the English ones are all over the country already. We are also looking at, you know, some engagements, community engagements in Accra and everywhere else, really. And, you know, these campaign launches are not just for us. Normally you have the diplomatic corps, people from all walks of life, civil society organizations, other political parties, even our fiercest rivals would normally join us for campaign launches. So it's actually a very large platform. We have an open invitation. There's a large park in Ghana's fastest growing metropolis, and I'm sure that Tamale is ready and poised to receive us on Saturday the 27th. And so yes, I invite all of you in the media especially to help us recommend our policies to the good people of Ghana.
Very well. We'll certainly be there. Now, talking about your policies, right? At Mahama's media engagement some weeks ago, he explained that free SHS was started by the NDC, right? Now, do you think it's isn't it somewhat counterproductive politically for him to state this? Does it really matter who started free SHS? Isn't the concern not rather how it's set to be continued if he is given the nod?
I'm sure you observed that when he expressed that view or sentiment, there was no pump, no pageantry, no large billboards wasting Ghanaian taxpayers' money, no huge celebrations, no highfalutin promises that we're never going to keep. Listen here, it was just one of the policies that was people-oriented to support the Ghanaian child. In any case, we had challenges with parity between the boy child and the girl child. We had free universal basic education, for example. In the days of Jerry Rawlings, they started with primary care in primary schools. If you remember, early childhood centers were all over the place. President Kufuor appeared and started with what? Preschool programs. They were very successful across the country. President Mills and John Mahama arrived. They looked at quality, the infrastructure, teacher training, and many other infrastructural issues that we had challenges with. Free senior high school is just a component of what our education requires. You know what the biggest challenge is today, as we speak, apart from corruption? That on the university campuses, tertiary institutions, for example, do you know that students are paying as much as 10,000 Ghana cedis to rent accommodation to stay on campus? You know, education has a long raft of issues beyond this debate about who started what. Why do you think they always want to bring us back to that debate? They have nothing else to show.
He raised it. Yes,
no,
you
he
say you
didn't.
didn't do it with pomp and pageantry.
He was asked a question.
But that was his response.
And if you were asked a question, you have to respond because, of course, when people ask you a question, you must give them a response.
Certainly, and his response highlighted that the NDC started it. Is it necessary?
Check, why not if you ask me?
All right.
If you ask me, I'll still say yes. Did he do it with that pump and pageantry? Did he spend all that money on advertising it? No. But we have a people in government who celebrated exiting an IMF with Banku and Wache and all of that, and told everybody else to get lost. This is the kind of government we're dealing with. And the disrespect goes on. And people allow them to continue to do it. We have said that the buck stops with President Akufo-Addo and his vice president. Deliver on your promises.
All right.
Our debt stock today is 742 billion, Natalie. That is a huge conversation. That is a serious conversation. It is a huge indictment for all the highfalutin lies they told us. This is where we are. That is a scorecard. On corruption, they scored 0. On prosecutions, they scored 0. On everything that matters, on planting for food and jobs. At the time when it was running, we had high food inflation. So please, who has the record of holding the highest, even in terms of cost of food, basic? It is President Akufo-Addo. So please, I don't want us to keep coming back to their soft spot because at the end of the day, look, education is great for everybody. I come from northern Ghana. But for education, I probably won't be having this conversation with you. I would love the same thing for my siblings and everybody else. And if there's anybody on whose side history knows this, it must be John Mahama. That is a fact.
So you're talking, we highlighted corruption, right? And yes, we did have President Akufo-Addo speaking extensively about how he's going to deal with corruption. He set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor. In the event that Mahama becomes president this year, how are you going to tackle corruption under the NDC?
If you check on all the records so far, on all the peer review mechanisms, if you look at the Afrobarometer report, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, for example, everybody appreciates the fact that Mahama did a lot in terms of his fight against corruption. What is it we're experiencing today? We have President clearing everybody who's accused, or allegations are made of them, or they go and sit at home and they're cooling off. We sang all sorts of hymns about procurement and single source procurement. When was the last time? Today, our finance minister spoke for 3 hours. Not a sentence, not an iota, not a conversational debate even about tackling corruption. It tells you. So you see, each time they bring back conversations about their soft spots, ask them, put them to strict proof about the other things they fail to deliver on. Because remember, why are we poorer today, 7 years and 8 months later? It's because they've stolen all our money. And yet the opulence stays with them. We watch all the platforms they put up. We watch the monies they expend. And indeed, the most ridiculous thing I've heard so far is that Ghanaians are going to do what? When we're already burdened 1.9 million of us unemployed, and you tell us that what, you're going to allow us to buy phones on credit. Really? In the countries where people buy phones on credit, they have jobs, they have good roads, they have good medical facilities.
Yeah, I mean, we had Baumia highlight the fact that the NDC trashes most of those what he would describe as rather visionary, bold projects.
I said the bold project.
What you think it's a bad initiative?
The boldest project he could ever speak to is to fix the economy, is to fight corruption, is to stop the waste of public resources going around and telling lies.
So you say
that is what we disagree
John Mahama is going to fix the economy, he's going to fight corruption and deal with corruption-related cases both under his administration and the previous
They will be investigated, and if proven, they will be prosecuted. If that's why they are packing the courts, make no mistake, these allegations will not die peacefully. Ghanaians are demanding full accountability. They expect it. And any leader who takes over and fails to investigate fully and prosecute these offenders, you will not even have peace. Imagine 339 million cedis expended on a national cathedral. Do you know how many hostels that can build? Do you know how many health facilities that can build? Did you hear about how condoms meant for basic schools were stolen and nobody has even recovered them? And the cost of same. You've heard about recent numbers of HIV/AIDS cases in Ghana. Do you know that the HIV Commission is struggling for funds to run? Corruption has denied us of all of these things. On health, the National Health Insurance, for example.
So, Ms. Mogtari, one office that's been set up as in the Office of the Special Prosecutor under Mahama-led administration, how is that office going to be treated?
It is a creature of statute.
Right.
And as I said, because we have all these, pomp and pageantry and celebrations of unnecessary things, it was the same with the inception of the Special Prosecutor's Office. President Akufo-Addo, then candidate, boasted about what he was going to do with that office. So short of going after his political opponents, on whom the allegations have not been substantiated, what else was he going to do with that office? They chased Martin Amido out of office. They chased Gloria Akufo out of office. Currently, the new special prosecutor himself is not free. So tell me, where is the real concern or interest on behalf of Akufo-Addo or Baumia to fight corruption? None whatsoever. Because all of the corruption is actually taking place on their doorsteps. They are monitoring, supervising, and part of it as well.
How different will that office be treated under a Mahama-led administration?
Because the office will be better funded. Look, in the history of this country, on governance, Mahama scores very highly. On media freedoms, he scores very highly. On the attempt to fight corruption, he scores very highly. I think that 8 years in the position, I'm sure that he has a very fair idea just what to do and do better. And I'm sure that on governance, one of the main things, for example, look at the number of ministers we have. One ministry with 3 deputies. One ministry that can take over all sorts of units and branches. We now have them all as independent, standalone ministries. When he invested in Ghana Gas, for example, what did that save us? 300 million in importation of gas. How have we fared over the years? You know, my sister, I think that sometimes we need to focus more on the fact that our citizens don't elect us into office because we can scream loudest, we can tell the biggest lies, the boldest of lies, or deceive everybody. You see, everybody allowed and pampered them so much that they've continued to tell these brazen lies, barefaced lies. In the face of rising debt, they promised never to go to the IMF. We are the IMF. And you heard the humility of the finance minister, literally begging for even more aid to support his budget. This is where we are. On that alone, they shouldn't even have a mouth to go around and campaign. And then to tell the story about giving people mobile phones. Really? Is that really a priority? How is that going to give me a job? By the time I became a deputy minister, Natalie, I was the head of my department. How many people today leave university and have this assurance that there will be jobs available for them? You know why that is not happening? Corruption, stealing, brazen, barefaced thievery is why Ghanaians are poorer. It's why Ghanaians are starving. It's why we don't even have decent, sustainable jobs for anybody. Right. What happened to Ghana Beyond Aid? What happened to putting my life, my presidency on the line to fight Galamsey? Tell me, what happened to all of those things? We talked about Ameri and all the noise they made in the past. Ameri is currently in Kumasi. It's now the property of the government of Ghana. It was paid for by taxpayers' money. Where is car powership? It is doing the same. Where are the IPPs? That's the reason why we have lights on. You know, look, If we had leaders who even appreciated the exigency of what history offers us, that leaders come into office and they will do their very best for the people. Not that contesting for president is not a light responsibility. Why would anybody want to be president of a country?
Certainly, it's a big responsibility.
Huge reason why you
now
want
let's
to be
just touch on the key policy that has been put forward by the NDC that has gained a lot of steam, the 24-hour economy policy. How is this really going to be rolled out to improve the lives of Ghanaians? Because many ask the question, how is it going to work?
Nobody's asking the question. Anybody you hear asking is one of the
Ghanaians are asking the question.
Oh, every Ghanaian who has heard us has actually lauded this policy. The Ghana Trades Union Congress, the Maritime and Dock Workers Union, all trade associations in Ghana believe that this is the one thing that government has not offered to partner for the private sector to do. When we were young students, the trade fair was employing us 24/7. When we were young students, Busy Internet was employing us 24/7. When we were young students, GCNet was employing us 24/7. And as my students said, it is one job that is available. It is open all day for 2 or 3 people to come and do. It means that at the end of the day, you even do it in 3 shifts. Why? There are companies currently that are running it. What is the reason why gas stations across the country are closing early now? Security is a big part.
It is. How is that going to be? How's that going to be tackled?
I mean,
security.
If we didn't need more security, why would they be telling us the Interior Minister is offering only MPP members of Parliament opportunities to recruit into the police service? Why would they be doing that?
How is the issue of security going to be handled under a 24-hour economy?
We will ensure that we have more security personnel. It's also an opportunity for job creation. Mr. Mahama has announced the national service will go back to what? Military training. If you remember in the past, most of our military officers started from the national service. So we're going to go back there. Remember that we had schools where national service had farms, and all those grains were feeding what? The Buffer Stock Company. We didn't have highfalutin names like Planting for Food and Jobs, where we had the minister literally stealing all our money under that initiative. You know what is happening to donor communities now? They're not giving money to this government. They don't trust them to tell the truth. They don't trust them to use the money for what it's meant for. And they believe that because of corruption, everything that you put into the system is stolen and shared just between a few. Everybody else is broke and poor. And our young people, you know what is the biggest challenges on tertiary campuses now? Anxiety and stress.
Right.
Because people don't know what to do next.
Now, on the issue of security, right, with the 24-hour economy, now we've had a UN ratio for effective policing, that's 1 to 500. Yeah. Ghana falls short of that. So we
definitely fall short.
We do fall short. There's approximately 25,000 police personnel that we need to add on for your 24-hour economy policy to run effectively. Do you have that? We have that capacity to employ these numbers? We can even do 30,000.
Why not? For the money they're stealing, for spending $12 million on PDS, for spending 11.9 million on a Kwalugu dam that doesn't exist. Put all that into cities. You can pay a stronger police force, a stronger security service. You can even pay private security companies if that's what you need to augment what the state has. They've built 320 rooms for police. What have they done with the former police lands? State captured by persons in government, key actors. When we were young people, what was SNIT doing? They were investing in safe hostels for our students. It was a safe investment. It meant that our mothers and fathers who are retired will get their investment. What is happening today? You know, look, we must all start to demand of our leaders, right? Accountability. Look at the campaigns in other jurisdictions. They campaign on issues. Can you imagine Kamala going to tell a group of people that she was going to offer them what? A mobile phone, and you pay 1 cedi every month. Really? You wouldn't dare come out a second time even to speak. I think that I love one thing about John Mahama's campaign so far. We are focused on the issues. Right. What matters? Cutting down the size of government to have 60 people, working our way back to the Constitutional Amendment Review Committee's recommendations, and being sure that we put together these very, very far-reaching recommendations. Because look, you know, behind every story, there's a history. Behind every legislation you see, there's a rationale. There was a good reason why Article 71 office holders were given the latitude that they were given under the 1992 Constitution. We now have a population of 34 million. Unemployment is a huge security threat. with at least 1.9 million people being unemployed. Corruption at the highest.
So you feel that the
Inflation at the
24-hour
highest.
economy is going to fix this unemployment
My sister,
deficit that we have as a country?
It would close the gap. It would definitely close the gap.
All right.
And if we provide security, transportation, tax incentives, tax holidays, have you heard how much money is being given?
So apart from this 24-hour economy which has been highlighted, give me 6 other key policies that will be brought forward
smaller government
by the NDC.
120 amorphous numbers. What is the impact on the economy? Waste, all drawing on the same taxpayer money. Ghana received 113 billion in tax revenue last year. How have we expended it? You have 120 minutes. What do?
What are the policies?
So that's the first one. Slimmer government, cut bureaucracy, cut wastage, waste, and more waste. Cut government expenditure. President Mahama will definitely not be using your money on a private jet, for example. Where will he be going to? President Mahama will not be running all these funny, fanciful parties and ideas that nobody knows what they do with them. Apart from that, I've asked you a question. Professor Frimpong Boateng arrived here with a report by government's own cabinet subcommittee on Galamsey, for example. He pointed accusing fingers at members of government who are engaged in Galamsey. How have we fared?
What are the policies?
So yes, we'll fight Galamsey.
Right.
What we'll make sure we do is that we will stop catching the small boys and girls and deal with the kingpins who buy the huge excavators. That is another policy that is very far-reaching. Secondly, there was a whole idea about developing these eco parks, especially in our forest areas, so that when we die, you won't see my will bequeathing to my family land that does not belong to me, that belongs to the state. That is also important. Investigating all the state capture and allegations of same and returning to the state what belongs to the state is a huge factor. The biggest part is that we must first and foremost reduce poverty by recovering these monies and making sure that Ghana's poor stop sleeping hungry or on empty stomachs.
So what are the 3 policies should we?
So I've told you, the first one is a slimmer government.
Slimmer government,
cut waste, cut government expenditure, reduce graft and corruption, save us from all the money they're stealing. These are huge issues. The next thing is working the constitutional amendment process so that we reduce the amount of power that all of these executives have. That is a drain on the economy. He has also told us that his own appointees should not expect excretion, which is a great thing. And all of us agree. Because when you look at the reasons why, the notes leading up to the preamble of the Constitution, there's a good reason why we add these things. Are they still relevant? No. Are they still feasible? No. We are indebted to the point where we can no longer pay our debts. 742 billion is what we owe, twice what it was a few months ago.
Right. So Ms. Mogtari, this Saturday, what should the Ghanaian people expect
Ghanaian people should expect
from this campaign launch?
Reassurance that the incoming NDC administration is coming into work for the good people of Ghana. All we need to do as a people is to allow for a new leadership to reset. Look, Ghana needs to go back to factory settings. Nobody's happy. Nobody's pleased. Nobody's enjoying life as the people in government are doing. So we all need to sit up, vote wisely, as I keep saying, because Ghana deserves better. And I'm sure Mr. Mahama and President Nana will be telling us just that. When you look at this pair of experienced hands, it tells you one thing. They are very certain of what it is they're going to offer. They will offer us comfort by reducing the size of government. They will offer us comfort by not living in a nepotistic administration where just a few family and friends make money. They will also make sure that they cut down government costs. So if you have fewer ministers, fewer fuel coupons, fewer utilities, fewer government bungalows, apart from that, for all the bungalows they're selling to themselves, can you imagine we can even recover half of them and give them back to the state? Look at the businesses that have actually collapsed on the back of a poor economy. Why do you think people are struggling to get jobs? Who's recruiting? How many times do you see an advert in Graphic, for example, talking about recruitment? Look at what happened with SML, paying millions to a company that nobody even knew where they came from. What is the GRA doing? They have large numbers of staff, big employer, state institution. Why do you need an assurance to augment what GRA is doing? You know, if we can plug the waste alone, my sister, many people will get jobs. We'll keep the lights on. if we can cut back on imports, for example, because remember that the 24-hour economy is also part of a wider industrialization drive to be powered by funds of at least 10 billion to give it a big push agenda, to focus on the economy, on agric, on whatever it is that improves on the system and on the economy. If we can have these services, improved economy and financial settings, if we have a women's bank that will lend even to female entrepreneurs alone, that must by all means make
now,
a difference.
you're confident that John Mahama and Professor Nana is a change that Ghana needs.
Yes.
In the event that things don't go in your favor come December 7, what's going to be the action by the NDC?
Why would we have any reaction? You should be talking to your president who says that he will not hand over to a duly elected new president. You should be advising him. He was always, his mantra was always about the rule of law. When was the last time you heard President Akufo-Addo speak about the rule of law? Now he talks about his legacy. Let me say one thing, that at least Mr. Mahama will tell you, that government is not anybody's property. We are not here to pamper leaders. We are here to demand accountability from our leaders, to demand that they work in the service of humanity and for us. And to his credit, the finance minister said it, that he empathized with the hardship that the good people of Ghana are currently experiencing. Those who are starving, those who go with a national health insurance card and cannot get jobs. And yet go and look at the cars parked outside the national health insurance buildings. So you ask yourself, did we come or did we go? Go to some of the government agencies and departments, overflowing and bursting at their seams with persons who do absolutely nothing. How do you even talk about efficiency? How do you protect the public purse? How do you save the dollar from running as fast as it's doing? And where are all those people who were touting a certain West kid who today can even stand and have the audacity to tell us that what we need is what? A CD per month to pay for a phone. Natalie, I'm sure MTN has many phones they can give out to the poor, and they do it through corporate social responsibility. MTN is building schools to augment what government does. They're doing a lot of things already. They don't need a vice president, for example, to tell us that he's giving us a phone for free. Really, consumer credit. If you have no job, how do you access consumer credit? If you have no income, how do you do that? We all have credit cards. How do you get a credit card? You have to show that you've actually got a salary, that you can make the repayments. Look, times are changing. And I love the fact that we are becoming more discerning. We are questioning some of these things that are being put out there. But ask yourself, where are all the lectures that stop the traffic? What has changed? Why? The vice president he's lost his mojo? He doesn't know what he wants to do.
Let's just highlight on the vice president's proposal, right? That you are saying is unnecessary. With regards to paying bit by bit for a mobile phone and other things he stated.
If you and I start today to sell mobile phones, I'm sure we can sell them bit by bit. I don't think we need a whole candidate of a political party who's failed to fix the economy anyway. The reasons why
in essence, what the vice president was saying, I believe, aside the phones, was that in other countries, things can be bought on credit, right?
In those countries, do young people wake up in the morning stressed out and paying huge sums of money for accommodation on campuses, in public universities? The answer is no. In those countries, you have 1.9 million people who have never had a decent job. In those countries, have we cleared the trade fair site, destroyed properties, just in the interest of one administration? Do you have that in those countries? Do you have a system where those countries are selling off state assets to themselves, even snitch shares to a cabinet minister? And we say that is not a conflict of interest, that is not wrong. I know Mr. Mahama very, very well. And at least the whole time Mr. Mahama has been in office, you and I have not been told, because you do know that everybody is looking for Mr. Mahama. So if he had government assets in his possession, it would be said. His brother is a known businessman.
Right.
When he tried even to secure an agreement through a consortium of investors, what happened? They said that because we signed on the eve. This was a debate, a negotiation that had taken 10 years, right from the days of former President Kufuor. But because of partisanship, look at the misinterpretation that was put on that whole arrangement. Are the president's brothers not doing business today?
Now, coming in, there are those who also criticize Mahama's presidency previously. How do you plan to treat that, and how different it's going to be this time around?
Let me say one thing. In a democracy, leaders will have different styles. Leadership will come in all shapes and sizes. I have no issues with anybody who criticizes Mr. Mahama for whatever reason. But on every key facet, I think that in all humility, Mr. Mahama was actually doing a much better job. He was accessible, He was listening. Remember, Mr. Mahama went through 9 months of a challenge to the legitimacy of his presidency. Secondly, we had a crippling power outage that propaganda and false policies and false allegations created this impression that he was actually in your home and turning the switches off. When we had power outages under President Kufuor, what did we see? We had our venerable pastors who helped us pray. The rain patterns didn't change. We had Bui Dam that was built. It never helped us. Mahama, through a modern day scholar, discovered that we could actually invest in independent power producers. We had no such infrastructure. Even those ones, how were they received? By the same people today, when they were then in parliament and not in government. Everything they accused John Mahama of, they've done a lot worse and more. How have we demanded accountability from them? I keep asking a question. Shut your eyes for a few minutes. That we're in 2016 today, and the dollar is 16 cedis, and people cannot even afford basic food, and utilities go up every day. What would they be doing? They even managed to convince all of us that Mr. Mahama was in your room and turning the lights off. The man was frustrated, trying to find a solution to a crippling power outages that were literally grounding this country to a halt. Do you know what that felt like? Do you know what trauma he went through? And yet didn't receive any amount of support from the then government in waiting. It was politicized. Everything became so partisan. Largely, the whole campaign was pitched against Mr. Mahama about power outages. This is what we have.
What are your final words, really, going into this general election, having the campaign launch this Saturday, 29th of July? What are your final words to Ghanaians, to NDC supporters, but most importantly to Ghanaians in general?
Look, let me say something very quickly. That Mr. Kufuor said it very beautifully. All of us know what is going on. We pay school fees for our wards. We have our kids who are home and never been able to hold on a job. We have nurses who are home and have not been posted. We have teachers who are home and have not been posted. We have teachers whose allowances are still in arrears for many years. And they have no future in sight. It's a very hopeless situation. What would you rather have? A leader who is not interested in personal aggrandizement, whose interest is not in private jets, whose interest is not in investing 339 million Ghana cedis in a non-existent national cathedral, pulling down homes belonging to judges. I know a judge who actually retired in anger because at the time he was being chased out of the house, his wife was very ill. He had given his life to Ghana and deserved better.
Under a Mahama administration, the National Cathedral is what other time?
You see, I don't want to engage in that conversation.
That has been a concern to many Ghanaians.
Many Ghanaians know also that if we can recover our monies, because the Ghana Architects Association told us that only one architect associated with government is getting all the jobs and nobody else gets anything. And even though the person has lost face in all the other countries, in Ghana they are still a star.
So what's going to happen to the National Cathedral?
So we will end all of these things.
The National Cathedral and what has been dug is not going to be...
I have never raised this issue with anybody or sought permission to discuss it. But I want you people today to demand and ask Mr. Akufo-Addo how we are going to first recover our investment, how we're going to pay compensation to persons who are still waiting to be compensated for the properties that were destroyed
as a result
of that. And then secondly, how those monies were expended. That is a question we should be asking, demanding accountability even before we win the election. So you can start the conversation. And Mr. Mahama and Nana will certainly be joining you.
But it's certainly not going to be a project that will be carried forward, the National Cathedral.
Where is the money, my sister? If
is it even a priority or an interest of the Mahama administration?
You are sitting in Ghana, you are watching Mr. Akufo-Addo, you are watching Vice President Bawumia telling you he will give you a phone for 10 cedis. Ask him, what do they intend to do with the National Cathedral?
In the event Mahama wins.
I don't want to make this a Mahama conversation.
In the event he wins the elections.
He will certainly win this election because Ghanaians deserve better. And Mr. Mahama has told us that he will cut down on waste, sweetheart deals, and all of those things. Where are all those lawyers who were losing sleep and working like a bull? We paid $491,000 to a transaction advisor, dollars, to advise us on a transaction that he knew was going nowhere. Can you imagine that this was Mr. Mahama in office and all these monies were being wasted? I'm sure you'll all be jumping on the rooftops and making a lot of noise. There is one thing I know for certain. Mr. Mahama is a very modest man, very humble man, who has no need or love for all the material things that people actually crave. He has told us that he will run a leaner government, that he will reduce a lot of the government waste, that he will also work to investigate and recover all these huge sums of money and put them to better use. Can you imagine that money expenditure was spent on Kolebu Teaching Hospital?
Now, Ms. Mogtari, we'd have to draw the curtains here, but very briefly, because this issue has trended somewhat, and it has to do with you as an individual and your character. It was said that you bought your Toyota Avensis, right, cheaply, your vehicle, relatively cheaply after the NDC lost power. Is that the case, and how do you respond to this allegation?
Very straightforward. Is that an allegation? I didn't steal the car, did I? At least they didn't say I stole the car.
That's
and if
your
I've been in
response?
this space for 10 years, and they have nothing to say but to come and talk about this. I told you even before I sat, my family would love to see me driving a G-Wagon, driving a Maybach, owning all the huge properties they've captured from the state. You understand? The Avensis was part of the conditions of service. And you know, I even went out to check why this rationale behind these saloon cars in particular. I came to government as a staff of one of Ghana's Club 100 companies. When I left my office, I had a right of first refusal to buy the saloon car, not the vehicles that we travel with. That has always been a convention. If that convention were to change, who would want to buy a government vehicle? But when did this start? Because they would be left in the yards, left to rot, like the buildings that were even left, even public hospitals that were left.
Right,
Who
okay.
has inherited them? You know, look, let's stop nitpicking.
I just wanted your response to those claims, but very well.
If you've stolen all our money, why would you beat me up for driving a small Toyota Avensis?
Let's round it up there. Ms. Joyce Bawa Mogtari, it's been a pleasure speaking with you here on GHOne TV. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.